Hello everyone, this is Highlander from MTGC Card Smith doing another custom Magic the Gathering card review. And today we have another card by Suleman. This card is called Absorb Essence. And immediately I have to check, is there not a card in Magic called Absorb Essence? There is not. There's Essence Scatter, there's Absorb, but there's no Absorb Essence. So you dodged a bullet there, sir. But I mean, this looks like it should be the name of a Magic card. Okay, so what do we got here? We got a green and 2 blue instant at rare. And a bunch of people who look like they're not having a good time. Okay, what do we got here? We got Kicker 3. Counter target spell. Sip your tea. Then put your teacup down. Next, put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature and a loyalty counter on up to 1 target planeswalker. If Absorb Essence was kicked, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. If it's a permanent spell, the copy has Illusionary. When this permanent comes to target a spell or ability, sacrifice a copy of Marie. Yeah, okay. Okay, so there's a lot to digest here. So, okay. Let's forget the kicker cost for the moment and just look at a 3 mana counter target spell, put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature and a loyalty counter on up to 1 target planeswalker. That is strong. That's quite strong. It is hard to cast, so there is that. You're not always going to have both a creature and a planeswalker, but if you do, you know, I mean, that's certainly some value. If we take a look at some other like counter spell variants that require colors, so let's take a look at like Absorb is an example, right? Absorb is a rare. It says counter spell, you gain 3 life. So you're looking at a very similar card as far like cost wise here, right? And the only thing they've tacked on here is you gain 3 life. Here you're tacking on a +1/+1 counter on a creature and a loyalty counter on a planeswalker. I can buy the +1/+1 counter. I don't know if both of these is. I think that's a little too much. You could maybe make it like an and/or, where you say counter target spell, put a +1, or excuse me, not an and/or, but an or. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature card, or a loyalty counter on up to 1 target planeswalker. However, I honestly think you should just get rid of the planeswalker clause. First of all, it will really simplify the card. And second of all, counter spells and planeswalkers are just obnoxious to play against. You know, like we've all played against the all planeswalker deck, and then so all the opponent has to do is like take up their planeswalkers, hold up their counter spells, and you're like, well, this is not fun, right? Because their turns also take forever because they got to be like, okay, post my planeswalker, make a little token guy, use my other planeswalker, draw 2 cards. Okay, now I got to discard a card, use this guy scry, turn this, turn Gideon into a creature, attack you, go. And then you're like, draw, play a creature, counter. All right, go. Okay, let me go next. Okay, +1 on this guy. Draw 2 cards. I'm like, discard a card. Oh, what should I discard? Discard that. Okay, we'll do a little scry here. +1 Giddy. Make Gideon a creature attack. You get it, right? So, like, adding a loyalty counter to a planeswalker, I think that's a little too much. I think just counter a spell and put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature is enough. Now, you'd also have Kicker on here, which is Kicker 3, so 6 mana. And if Absorb Essence was kicked, copy that spell, presumably the target spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. If it's a permanent spell, the copy has Illusionary. Illusionary. So this card is getting really close to Fractured Identity. if anybody's ever played against Fractured Identity, and I'm not talking about it in Commander, right? Because in Commander, this card's actually kind of fair in the sense that like everybody else gets a token. But if you've ever played Fractured Identity like in Cube or in any 1v1, it is not a fair card. Okay? You exile their thing and you make a token that's a copy of it. So you get all their ETBs, Fractured Identity, their Grave Titan. Okay? They lose their Grave Titan. You get your own Grave Titan, and you get the 2 Grave Titans, or excuse me, the 2 zombie tokens right off the bat, right? Fractured Identity, their angel of... What's the angel that exiles things? Whatever, you get the picture, right? Fractured Identity is not a fair card. You are getting pretty close to Fractured Identity here, right? I mean, it has to be on the stack, so it's a little harder, it's a little bit more expensive, and it's a little harder to cast, but you also get a +1/+1 counter here. So you're basically paying 6 to counter something and make a token copy. Now, it's a little bit easier to play around, because if you know they have Absorb Essence in their deck, and they have 6 mana up, then you can kind of play around it by playing like your less important spells, but like even then, I think this card is way too good. Way too good. So like without the kicker, the card's already too good. Like I mentioned before. Like if this was just like green, blue, counter target spell, put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature you control. That's a good card already. That's quite a good card. Okay? And we know that because we looked at Absorb. And Absorb is a rare counterspell. There's other similar ones. There's like a red-blue counterspell that like deals 2 damage to the person who casts the spell or something, right? Like those are rare counterspells. Okay? What you've got here is like a mythic counterspell and a counterspell that I don't think should exist. Okay? Counterspells are obnoxious enough. Listen, I love me some counterspells, okay? I really do. I'm definitely a blue mage. But this counterspell is not a fair counterspell. Because like once you have 6 mana up and you counter literally anything, you're just getting so much value off this. You're getting a counter on a creature, and you're getting a copy of the thing that they don't get. And you even get to, if it's a spell, you get to choose new targets. If it's a permanent, like you get it in play and you get their ETB effects. I mean, I know that you give it illusionary, but like I don't think that's not really enough, right? I mean, Phantasmal Image is a good card, right? And Phantasmal Image has illusionary. So yeah, I think you're putting too much on this card. I really don't think a counterspell that lets you like copy the spell that you countered is a good idea. There are some counterspells that do somewhat similar things. Like there's the and not exactly the same, but there's, what is it, like draining something, or yeah, draining Welk. But this is like a 6 mana creature. You counter a spell, you put X counters on it, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. So like this is something, but this is a lot worse than what you've got going on in your card there. And another card that comes to mind is I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a 5 mana counter spell that when you counter their spell, you make 3 treasure tokens, right? Like those are other rare counter spells, but those cost a lot of mana. And even though this costs a lot of mana, the fact that this card is flexible is also a really big knock against it balance-wise, right? If this was like 6 mana, copy a spell, or excuse me, 6 mana counter a spell, copy it, like you're starting to get in the realm of okay there, but I think that design is still like too dangerous. It's just too unfun for the, like, people already hate getting their spells countered. How many players do you know that say they hate blue because counters, they hate counter spells or whatever, right? Maybe not as much anymore in modern Magic, but that's because the counter spells they print aren't like, too good. Like there's no mana leaks, there's no counter spell, the counter spell, there's no mana drains, So, sorry, take a sip there. This just like tacks on real like extra feel bad on top of it. So, honestly, I think that you should reconsider your design here. I think this is just too much. Sometimes there are things that just shouldn't be done. Maybe if this like did that and it cost 7 mana, I might be able to be okay with it, but like I just don't think you should, essentially. And I know I'm taking a very strong stance here. So let me know what, give me some feedback, what you guys think, but I am pretty confident that this is a very unfun card to play against. So I think that part of the card is just not a good idea. Now, sorry guys, my dog just barked. See, he also doesn't like this card. So, yeah, I mean, I could buy green, blue, counter spell, put a +1/+1 counter on up to one target creature. I think that is a powerful card. I think that's probably the best of the counterspell cycle, really. Like, there's gain 3 life, which is pretty good. And then there's the like deal 2 damage to your opponent, also pretty good. There is like a blue-green version of it called Void Slime, I think, but that one's like not very good. Counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. That's not particularly good. This is an old card, so. But you get the picture. A +1/+1 counter is a strong bonus, right? Like imagine you use this in combat. So like imagine you're playing limited, for example, and you're getting into combat, and your opponent attacks you, and you're like, okay, I'll trade my guy, and then they're like. They're like, ha, use my combat trick. And you're like, okay, absorb essence or combat trick. My guy gets a +1/+1 counter, and now they no longer trade. Now my guy wins. Right? So you just like 2-for-1 them. I mean, that's quite strong. I mean, there's all kinds of other scenarios where this would be pretty good. So like, yeah, I think what you've put too much on this card. So yeah, that's my opinion of Absorb Essence. I have to give this one. A 4 out of 10. I think counter target spell, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. I think that is a pretty good design. It's a fine design. It's strong, but it's fine. I think all the extra stuff you have tacked on here is too much. So for that reason, I have to give it a 4 out of 10 because I don't think you should be doing things like this. Also, there's some formatting issues too. I mean, you're not using the right border, and there's like an extra period here, but whatever, that's beside the point. So unfortunately, I have to say no to Absorb Essence, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. So anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Let me know in the comments what you guys think too. Am I going overboard? Am I hating on this card too much? Or am I correct? Let me know what you think. See you next time.